Hello and welcome to round 2 of the SpaceChem single elimination tournament. We're going to start with Pseudodude and Philosopher's Troll. Now if you didn't load this up, challenge up yourself. This is a sandbox challenge. The goal is to take a terminating string of lead. The input is this, just a couple atoms of lead, and this ends. Take that, turn it into gold. Turn gold, turn it back into lead, and have it run forever. So we'll start with Pseudodude's submission. Grabs one of the original leads, drops it here. Then red will start splitting and fusing and moving it over, and this is gonna take a while. As this is a low symbol challenge, just gonna keep splitting. Boron down to helium, and we get one atom of hydrogen. The hydrogen triggers blue to come around, do some stuff, and output one atom of hydrogen. This guy, this next reactor, is eventually going to fuse these single atoms all the way up until gold. It's gonna take a while. Oh boy. Okay, so we finally had this one output its gold. It's going onto this reactor. Since this is getting down to the near garbage areas, blue comes in, grabs the last hydrogen. It went and activated this flip-flop, and it's going to input the second lead atom. And it's going to do this whole thing again, outputting single hydrogens. The next time it gets down to completely processing one lead atom all the way down to hydrogen, it'll hit this flip-flop, go here, and then the hydrogen will trigger it to come back and grab the lead that's eventually going to come all the way through this pipe and back into here. The reason for all of this is that blue will only input 2 betas the entire time. Only 2 original lead atoms, and then the rest just keeps getting reprocessed. So this guy created his gold. We're up here now, where it's going to do kind of the same thing. Split, and eventually a hydrogen comes, which triggers blue to come do a thing, output it, move the atom over. This next reactor takes this one hydrogen and eventually fuses that into lead. Outputs it back to the original. This again will take a while. So now we've hit the point where the first gold atom has been completely processed, so now blue triggers off to go move around and begin inputting another atom to continue the cycle. Which we've still only created one. Let's see how we're going. Well, that's almost done. There. So it outputted the second gold atom, it got inputted, and it's getting processed now. Meanwhile, as I said before, this one, the second lead atom has been fully processed, and now blue was triggered to go here, then triggered to input the new alpha, so blue will never hit this beta ever again. So it's waiting for the alpha that's going to come from this guy once... Oh hey, it's almost done. Come on. Eventually. There! And our first lead atom has been produced. And now it's going to just keep going on like this for all time. And it's could be outputting these a lot faster, but oh man. It's going to take a long time to even just fill up these printer things. Now you noticed I had these pauses here. You obviously don't need them. I just had them in for showing off the solution. I also have mystery reactor, so you don't know immediately how many symbols this has. So when I go to Krackor, his solution, he also has mystery reactor. You don't immediately know who won. So let's see what Krackor is doing. So he outputs or inputs one atom here and waits until this gets split. Okay, so the lead gets split into gold. There's the helium here, and then one hydrogen left over from splitting a lead into gold. The hydrogens trigger a bunch of stuff to happen. I'll put a single hydrogen here, and then red comes, inputs another lead. So we had the gold output up here and 3 hydrogens down here. Now note that red is not going to do anything at all here except for inputting a new alpha. So like the previous solution, it inputted beta twice, and it's just going to sit here doing alpha now. This next reactor, the gold, blue just shunts it over. Red fuses the hydrogens together. Eventually it's going to create a gold and output that. And it's going to get processed. So meanwhile, we've already created our first gold. Okay, so we can look at this reactor now, and we can see that it's just, all it's doing is splitting things down and outputting single hydrogens. Using a hydrogen sensor to know when the atom is processed and to move everything out of the way. So we have single hydrogens going into reactor 4, where it's also just kind of trivial to fuse that together into lead. Just keep going till the lead sensor detects lead, send it back to the first reactor. Now what I like about Krakkor's solution is that it's much faster. It doesn't take completely forever like Pseudodude's. This reactor 3 is very slow. It might be intentionally so. Eventually it's going to create a lead. Eventually. Yeah, no, the first 2 reactors process that very, very quickly and output it. The only issue I see with this running completely forever is what happens when this guy eventually creates a gold. I looked at the timings of the outputs, and worst case scenario, the blue will be like sitting over here just outputting a gold by the time red gets the trigger to move in and go along the same path. So I don't think there's ever going to be any collisions. Since this reactor is so slow, you're not going to have 2 fully formed atoms ready to go here, and just the output timings of that. I'm not going to sit around here waiting for half an hour to confirm it like Krackor said I might have to. I'll just take his word for it. So there we go. There were 2 systems that turn gold into lead and lead into gold forever. But who actually did it with less symbols? Krackor did it in 70 symbols. Pseudodude, 56 symbols! Congratulations, Pseudodude! You have won something as the Alpha Bracket Champion. So now I'll move on to Amro's solution for things I won't work with. I mentioned this in the post, but you really should try to Google the phrase things I won't work with and find the blog that this is based off of. Reading the stories about these chemicals is really quite interesting, especially chlorine trifluoride. I like the story of a 1-ton spill of this stuff that ate through a foot of concrete and then a couple feet of earth and gravel underneath that. Chlorine trifluoride sounds like pretty much the worst chemical ever. So let's see what Amro's doing. I want to start with this reactor. No, I don't. I'll start with this reactor, where it just kind of goes out of sync a little bit. It's a splitter, so we get fluorine up and fluorine down, but since this pipe backs up right here a little bit, it's kind of an uneven splitter. So the top fluorine gets sent to this reactor, where thanks to bond priority, eventually, it's going to create a fluorine at some point. Here we go. Thanks to bond priority, it makes FOOF, dioxygen difluoride right away, and chlorine just gets shunted off to the next reactor. The chlorine gets split and bonded to a bunch of fluorines from this first reactor, the ones that were split up. Single chlorines get outputted. These single chlorines meet up with, first the nitrogen input gets split into a single stream of nitrogen, and that meets up with the chlorine, and altogether to form chlorine azide. That's still a little past. So this is a challenge that looks quite difficult, but once you see a low symbol solution, it seems pretty simple. So Amro managed to do this in 65 symbols. However, he's going up against Serbaldrig. Let's see what Serbaldrig can do. I also have a mystery reactor here with might have symbols in it, might not. So Serbaldrig starts off by creating the dioxygen difluoride right away, again using bond priority. But then when the chlorine comes in, he senses it, and then adds on a bunch more fluorines. Creates this beast of a chemical. Okay. What the heck is that gonna do? So with this beast, Just debonds it a little bit, outputs this. Creates chlorine trifluoride output. Okay. And then this FCl does a thing with the nitrogens. Okay. Let's see that again. Bond a whole bunch of nitrogen gas. Chop off the fluorine. Bond the one nitrogen and snip off that last one. That is clever. So you see he creates a waste here. Fluorine and nitrogen single atoms get outputted as waste. But it's not so bad, he doesn't have to fill the whole map with garbage. Okay, so I believe this one ended up slower than Amro's, but it's a low symbol solution. How many symbols did Serbaldrig do this in? From 65 to 48! So Serbaldrig did this in many less symbols and even one fewer reactor. So Serbaldrig, you are the beta champion. You will win something. Congratulations. So now to Jabor and Hydrocarbon Stitch in the Psi finals. This challenge, it looks a little bit simple, but it's actually really, really difficult. You might even wonder what these carbons are doing here, but this carbon input here is very important. You might think you would just have to shunt this carbon between beta and omega zones and use all this to make the polyethylene, but that's not how you do it. The real trick to this level is that if you want a solution that makes sense, this carbon needs to be this carbon. The carbon that starts here needs to work its way into the polyethylene. So let's see what Jabor's doing. Okay, input a thing. Since whatever he inputs is guaranteed to have a hydrogen right there, let's lop off that hydrogen. Now he drops it here, the carbon will get outputted. Blue will use a series of flip-flops to grab a carbon, bond hydrogen. So then it comes back, rebonds it, flip-flops, starts building polyethylene. Okay, we've already seen that. So now at this point, this gets dropped and grabbed. So if there was just a single carbon there, it would still be there if it was just a single carbon, but since it's the 3-long polyethylene monomer, it gets bonded and moved up. Eventually it'll detect that this hydrogen is up here, so it detects that it's done, and outputs. Blue also has the same thing detect if blue created the fourth monomer to create it, and it'll come and output it. This is actually a very, very low symbol solution for this challenge. I've never seen one for this done with this low symbols. However, it's a speed challenge. Let's see how fast Jabor can do this one in 737 cycles. Now remember how I said if you want a solution that makes sense, this carbon has to be this carbon? What does it look like if it's not like that? Well, let's go to JavaJesus. Oh boy! From 40 symbols to 103. Okay, let's try and make sense of this nonsense. Grab a new one, drop it there. Okay, that makes sense to me. Bond it again, okay. So he's building a thing until he grabs the one with the extra hydrogens. That sets off a hydrogen sensor, so things start happening. So start building the polyethylene, take the hydrogen. Now since blue comes in and grabs it, it detects that there's a carbon here, so it knows that it can take the hydrogen from this, create another polyethylene monomer. So red does this kind of big song and dance. Bonds that. Blue outputted another carbon. And it's just going to repeat for a while. So blue inputted a new carbon and just shunted it over, so the beta input carbon becomes the omega output carbon. And this will go for a while. The behavior of this changes a little bit once blue does not detect a carbon here, so I'll just speed ahead to when that happens. So red has a hydrogen, blue doesn't have a carbon. So it has to input something new, and it can bond. So this is the same thing. Take red hydrogen and create a polyethylene monomer. And we saw that. Now this case is even more different. So red drops this hydrogen here and leaves it here as garbage. Blue will drop this hydrogen there and leave that as garbage completely. So this solution will not run forever. It'll crash the next time blue has to come up here and grabs the 3 hydrogen methane. But fortunately for JavaJesus, he doesn't have to do that, and it outputs right there much, much slower than Jabor's solution. So congratulations, Jabor, you are the Psi champion. Amro wanted to show off a thing. He did this challenge for fun. He built polyethylene in a way that I never even realized you could. Now his solution isn't as fast because this is kind of a difficult challenge. He's building a weird thing. Look at that! I mean, yeah, that's polyethylene when you think about it. I think that's... if there was another bond there, I think that would be called cyclobutane, but that's a really weird way of doing this. And also, half the symbols of JavaJesus. But Amro's solution also not terribly fast. I just thought you might want to see that one. So we're now into WildM, and he's trying to ban dihydrogen monoxide. Let's see what he's doing. He takes an input of hydrogen peroxide and hydrogen. We're trying to turn it into water. So let's see what he does. He kind of remakes the hydrogen peroxide in a fashion and takes hydrogen and outputs that up top. The remade hydrogen peroxide gets sent to the next reactor, where a single oxygen gets debonded off of it. So there's a hydrogen here and an OH up here, oxygen down there. Yeah, all of that, let's see. The single oxygen gets fed up into this reactor, where the hydrogen was, and it just creates water. Look at this crazy thing of flip-flops. We'll kind of get back to that. But then the water and this unformed water all come to the last reactor, where it just gets formed together. Okay, so WildM ends up at 423 cycles. Now what the heck was all of this for? No, not there, it was here. All of these flip-flops, what the heck is all this for? Well, let's get rid of them and see. That's all gone. All of these flip-flops are there to save 2 cycles. It's a way for WildM to exploit the fact that it is a random input, and at some point one of these gets more, or one of the pipes will fill up with one of these more than the other. So by the end of the thing, whoops, try that again. Okay, there, I got it. So you can see at the very end, 38, these are the last 2 inputs. The only thing left in the system is there's 1 water there, there's 1 oxygen here, and 1 hydrogen input here. So this is very efficient, there's almost no backlog of anything, it just gets output very quickly. 423 cycles. So let's see what Nethris did. Nethris reduces the hydrogen to a single output and moves the hydrogen peroxide up top. Okay, makes sense to me. From here he just rebonds the, or debonds the hydrogen peroxide to 2 hydroxyl radicals. Outputs them in different ways. And those meet up with the single atom of hydrogens and get outputted. Makes a lot of sense to me. Let's wait until he gets to very near the end. See, now here's kind of a problem. He's got some stuff backed up. So he's got his last 2 outputs here. There's 2 hydroxyls backed up here. There's 2 hydrogens that are about to be made. And that's why this ends up a few cycles slower. So congratulations to WildM, you are the Omega Champion. So I'll see everyone for next week for the red and blue finals in a Halloween themed challenge. See you then.